When God is moving you forward, why are we looking back? Hi y'all, welcome back to another video. If you are new here, welcome. My name is Shay. I make Bible study videos as well as vlogs. And today we are in the book of Numbers. We will be studying what's going on. We're keeping up with the Israelites as God bring them out of slavery. And in the book of Numbers, where we are right now, we're right before they get to the promised land. We're going to see what's going on here. And I know I stated in the previous videos that we're going to do about 9 chapters of video. But this really had a lot of context in here. So I wanted to make sure that all of you guys grasped everything that's going on before we just like try to hurry and rush through this. So we're in this video, we're going to be going through Numbers chapters 10 through 14. And we're going to break down what's going on. What can we learn from this text? If you are new here and you are interested in just growing in your faith, or you're on a journey of growing in your faith and really trying to understand the Bible, then this is the place for you. We're just here learning, reading, growing together in our faith and trying to understand and read the Bible for ourselves. Many of us grew up in Christian homes, but we didn't necessarily know why we were Christian. We just became Christian because that's what we were told, you know? So I think it's important as adults we pursue God and have a relationship with Him for ourselves. And so that's what this Bible study series is all about, just getting to know who God is. So we're going to go ahead and jump right in it. So Numbers chapter 10, I want to kind of summarize the chapters. The people of Israel are set out to go to Canaan. Remember, Canaan is the promised land, and they are leaving the desert of Sinai. So remember, Moses is the leader. He's the one who God chose to lead the people of Israel out of slavery in Egypt. So as God is leading the people of desert Sinai into the land of Canaan, he says in verse 9, when you go into battle into your own land against an enemy who is oppressing you, sound a blast on the trumpets, then you will be remembered by the Lord your God and rescued from your enemy. Okay, and so we see here that when they do run into trouble, they have a covenant with God and a symbol with God that whenever they need God, all they have to do is sound the trumpet and He will appear and face their enemies for them. And then in chapter 11, we see the Israelites begin to groan and complain against God once again, which we saw in previous books. And God gets angry and set the camps on fire. So let's read this. Chapter 11 verse 1 says, now the people complained about their hardships in hearing of the Lord. And when He heard them, His anger was aroused. Then fire from the Lord burned among them and consumed some of the outskirts of the camp, right? So then we just see here that the Israelites are getting a little bit impatient. They're ungrateful at this point, you know. Now, remember, it's been about 2.5 years, maybe almost 3, where the people of Israel have left Egypt and have been traveling to the land of Canaan. And so, verse 4 in chapter 11 states, the rabble with them began to crave other food, and again the Israelites started wailing and said, if only we had meat to eat. We remember the fish we ate in Egypt at no cost. Also the cucumbers, melons, leeks, onions, and garlic, but now we have lost our appetite. We never seen anything but manana. Manana is bread. So we see here the people are not happy with the food that God has blessed them with. They said that they would much rather be in Egypt in slavery to eat at no cost than to live the life that God has promised them. Verses 10 through 15, it states that Moses heard the people of every family wailing at the entrance to their tents. The Lord became exceedingly angry, and Moses was troubled. He asked the Lord, why have you brought this trouble on your servant? What have I done to displease you that you put the burden of all these people on me? Did I conceive all these people? Did I give them birth? Why do you tell me to carry them in my arms as a nurse carries an infant to the land you promised, an oath to their ancestors? Where can I get meat for all these people? They keep wailing to me, give us meat. I cannot carry all the people by myself. The burden is too heavy for me. If this is how you are going to treat me, please go ahead and kill me. If I have found favor in your eyes, and do not let me face your own ruin. That was a lot. Okay, so let's break this down. So we see that the people are complaining. Moses is the leader. The people are complaining to Moses and like, look, why did you bring us out here? We have no meat. All we are eating is bread. All we're eating is this and that. I'm tired. You could have left us at Egypt. And Moses grew weary. Sometimes as leaders, whether that's in your family, whether that's at work, whether that's in your house, you grow weary because you are carrying the load of others, which is what Moses said. This burden is too heavy for me, God. If you're gonna continue to give me this burden, just go ahead and kill me, right? And so we're gonna see how God responds, but we're just looking at this text and we can see that it's okay to grow weary. It's okay to grow tired. And it's also okay to go to God and say, look, God, you have given me this vision. You have given me this job title. You have given me this responsibility. Yet, I'm tired. The burden is too heavy. Right? And we can go to God in conversation. We don't always have to go to God in a formal way. Just how Moses went to God, God, what's going on? Help me understand, why do you have me in this situation? And let's look and see how the Lord responds in verse 16. It says, the Lord said to Moses, bring me 70 of Israel elders who are known to you as leaders and officials among the people. Have them come to the tent of the meeting, that they may stand there with you. I will come down and speak with you there, and I will take some of the power of the Spirit that is on you and put it on them. They will share the burden of the people with you, so that you will not have to carry it alone. And then God says, tell them to consecrate themselves and prepare for the coming of the Lord. And the Lord heard you when you wailed. If only we had meat to eat, we were better off in Egypt. Now the Lord will give you meat, and you will eat it. You will not eat it for just 1 day, 2 days, 3 days, 4 days, 5 days, 10 days, 20 days, but for a whole entire month, until it comes out of your nostrils, and you loathe it, because you have rejected the Lord who is among you. You have wailed before him, saying, why did we leave Egypt? So now we see that God is going to give Moses some help. Going to have Moses get help from 70 of the leaders of the people of Israel. The spirit that he gives them, he's going to give them a spirit of prophecy. He's going to give them the spirit of being able to hear from the Lord and being able to lead the people directly where the Lord wants them to be led. And we're going to see that here in verse 26. It says, however, 2 men whose names were Eldad, Medad had remained in the camp. They were listed among the elders, but did not go out the tent. Yet the Spirit also rested on them, and they prophesied in the camp. A young man ran and told Moses, the 2 men are prophesying in the camp. So, back up, God. So remember, the people were complaining about meat. God said, okay, y'all complaining about meat. I'm not just going to bless y'all with meat for 2 days, 3 days, 4 days, a week. I'm going to give y'all meat to last y'all an entire month. Okay, Moses was worried that God even said this. Moses said in verse 21 of chapter 11, he says, but Moses said, here I am, 600,000 men on foot, and you say I will give them meat to eat for a whole month. Would they even have enough if flocks and herds were slaughtered for them? Would they have enough if all the fish in the sea were caught for them? And guess what God says to Moses? He says, is the Lord's arm too short? Now you will see whether or not what I say to you will come true. So Moses didn't have no choice but to believe. This is a lot to take in. I was so excited reading this lesson because I feel like there's so much to learn from this. One, be grateful for what you have, because we see that the Israelites, God had blessed them with the basic necessities: food, water, life, shelter, all of these things. However, they were like, well, back in Egypt, we had this, right? When God is moving you forward, why are we looking back? We look back on what God brought us out of, we miss what's ahead. And we're going to see this in this chapter, in this book, as we keep reading. So then God goes on, and in chapter 11, it says that after the people came out and told Moses that the people were prophesying, Moses says, I wish that all the Lord's people were prophets, that the Lord would put his spirit on them. That's the thing, though. Everybody can't have a vision. Everybody can't be the vessel, okay? If you find yourself being the vessel in your family, and your friends, in your community, at your school, at your job, it's normal for it to feel heavy. It's normal for it to feel like a burden, just as Moses did. Moses had a very important job, As leaders, we have a job. Also, as a vessel, you have an even more important job. And everybody won't understand. Everybody can't get the spirit that God puts within us to lead a flock or to lead a people. So Moses is like, look, I'm glad he finally given us some help because I needed the help, okay? So then we move on. So then we see at the end of the chapter that people are still complaining once God gives them meat. And verse 33 says, but while the meat was still between their teeth, and before it could be consumed, and the anger of the Lord burned against the people, and he struck them with a severe plague. Therefore the place was named Kibroth Hattava, because there was buried people who had craved other food. Stop craving what God did not bless you with. It's so easy, especially with this social media world, to look at everybody else's life, right? And say, only if I woulda, coulda, shoulda, done. You know what I mean? Like, God gave us everything that we need in this life. However, we get so distracted of where we were, where we're going, where we could be, where we should be, that we are not being present and grateful for where we are in this present moment. So take a break. Take a pause and just give God thanks for how far he has brought you. Because we're going to see here too, before these people are literally miles away from going to the promised land. But because of their greed and their lust and their longing to be what they were, they miss out on the promised land. Don't let that be you when it comes to God moving you forward and you so stuck on like your past self, stuck on that, the immature you, the spiritually immature you, you're gonna miss out on what God has for you. In chapter 12, it talks about Miriam and Aaron, which is the brother and sister of Moses. They began to question Moses' leadership and his spirit of being able to prophesize. And we see that in verse 1 and 2. It says, Miriam and Aaron began to talk against Moses because of his Cushite wife, for he had married a Cushite. Has the Lord spoken only through Moses? They asked. Hasn't the Lord also spoken through us? And the Lord heard this. Okay, so if I'm not mistaken, Moses is one of, or if not the author of the book of Numbers, right? So then the Lord addressed them in verses 5 to 8. He says, look, listen, don't play with God's people. Then the Lord came down in a pillar of cloud. He stood at the entrance of the tent and summoned Aaron and Miriam. When the two of them stepped forward, he said, listen to my words. When there is a prophet among you, I, the Lord, reveal myself to them in visions. I speak to them in dreams. But this is not true of my servant Moses. He is faithful all in my house. With him I speak face to face, clearly and not in riddles. He sees the form of the Lord. Why then were you not afraid to speak against my servant Moses? Okay, look, God said don't play with my people, all right? God anoints his people and ordains his people. You're gonna know, and don't play with them. Miriam's skin actually turned leprous. And so after her skin turned leprous, we see here it says, it became as white as snow. Aaron turned toward her and saw that she had a defiling skin disease. And he said to Moses, please, my Lord, I ask you not to hold against us the sin we have foolishly committed. I wonder if this is like, could you only blaspheme against God? Or is it possible to blaspheme against God's people as well? Because we know that God didn't play about Moses based off how he responded. Yeah, that's something to consider, because blasphemy is a really big deal when it comes to sin. Verse 12 says, do not let her be like a stillborn infant coming from its mother's womb with its flesh half eaten away. So this is something interesting that I actually found out that I wanted to share with you guys. So I saw this post where it says after Eve bit off the fruit and they ate off the tree in Genesis 3:16, it says God mentions he will increase a woman's pain in childbirth. This is talking about infertility and having stillborn children. So that's what the childbirth means, not necessarily like the pain in labor, but the pain the mental, the physical, emotional pain behind infertility and stillborn. So when Moses asks God of this favor, I'm assuming that he's referring back to the punishment that would take place amongst women. So then in verse 12 chapter, Moses asked God to heal Miriam leprosy. And she was quarantined for 7 days, and after that, she was healed. All right, so then let's go to chapter 13. So this is where God tells Moses to send some people there, send some leaders there to just check out the land, just see what the land is looking like. So he sent some in, and you'll see in chapter 13 verses 4 through 15, all of the leaders who had gone to the land of Canaan just to check it out before they go there, right? So they come back, and we see they come back in verse 25 of 13. It says, at the end of 40 days, they returned from exploring the land. So this is what they said when they came back. Let's read this. 26, it says, they came back to Moses and Aaron, the whole Israelite community, at Kadesh in the desert of Paran. They reported to them the whole assembly and showed them the fruit of the land. They gave Moses this account. We went into the land to which you sent us, and it does flow with milk and honey. Here it is, it's the fruit. But the people who live there are powerful, and the cities are fortified and very large. We even saw descendants of Anak there. The Amalekites live in Negev, Hittites, Jebusites, and Amorites live in the hill country, and the Canaanites live near the sea and along the... So he says all this stuff here. And then 31 says, but the men who had gone up with him said, we can't attack those people. They are stronger than we are. Already they are forgetting that God had already promised them. Remember, that's what we read at the beginning of this chapter. God said, when you are faced in your enemies, sound the trumpet and I will appear before you. And yet they are still talking about they are too little, they are too weak to defend the people in the land that God had already promised them. So that right there is a slap in God's face once again. The Israelites are people of very low faith in what God has for them. But I feel like God uses the Israelites as an example to all of his people, showing that the only thing that we have between us and God is faith. If you have faith, you have nothing. So God will take people that are, in situations, for them it was slavery, and bring them out of the situation to show them that he is God. However, it is up to us and up to them and during this story to believe God is who he says he is. So then, something else that I wanted to share with you guys. In verse 33 of chapter 13, it talks about the Nephilims, which are the descendants of Anak, come from Nephilim. So these are also known as aliens or fallen angels, because these are these really big, huge giants. And back in the day, back in the biblical times, these were considered people, or researchers have thought that these are fallen angels. So that's something that I just wanted to point out to you guys to do more research on. So then we are in chapter 14. Chapter 14 reads verses 1 through 4. That night, all the members of the community raised their voices and wept aloud. All the Israelites grumbled against Moses and Aaron, and the whole assembly said to them, if only we had died in Egypt or in the wilderness. Why is the Lord bringing us to this land only to let us fall by sword? Our wives and children will be taken as plunder. Would it be better for us to go back to Egypt? And they said to each other, we should choose a leader and go back to Egypt. Oh my gosh, these people cannot get over Egypt. Do you or you know somebody who is so stuck on where they used to be? Who they used to be? You are no longer that person. When God renews you, when God rebirths you, let that old person go. Let that old situation go. Let that old relationship go. Because watch how the Israelites miss out on what God had them. And the crazy part about it is they were right in front of the promised land, but their lack of faith and trust in the process, they messed themselves over. They messed themselves over big time. So then let's read 6 through 9. It says, Joshua son of Nun and Caleb son of Jephunneh, who were among those who had explored the land, tore their clothes and said to the entire Israelite assembly, the land we passed through and explored is exceedingly good. If the Lord is pleased with us, he will lead us into the land, a land flowing with milk and honey, and will give it to us. Only do not rebel against the Lord, and do not be afraid of the people of the land, because we will devour them. Their protection is gone, but the Lord is with us. Do not be afraid of them. The Israelites just could not accept this new world, y'all. So after Joshua and Caleb told them this word, the Israelites, they wanted to stone them. And we see this in verse 10. It says, but the whole assembly talked about stoning them. Then the glory of the Lord appeared in the tent of meeting to all the Israelites. The Lord said to Moses, how long will these people treat me with contempt? How long will they refuse to believe in me? In spite of all the signs I have performed among them, I will strike them down with the plague and destroy them, but I will make you into the nation greater and stronger than they. My. That's what God says. So then this is what Moses says. Now may the Lord's strength be displayed just as you have declared. The Lord is slow to anger, abounding in love, and forgiving sin and rebellion. Yet he does not leave the guilty unpunished. He punishes the children for the sin of the parents to the third and fourth generation. In accordance with your great love, forgive the sin of those people, just as you have pardoned them from the time they have left Egypt until now. So God says, not one of them will ever see, this is verse 23, not one of them will ever see the land I promised on oath to their ancestors. No one who has treated me with contempt will ever see. Okay, sorry, y'all got excited. And then in verses 26 to 35, it states, the Lord said to Moses and Aaron, how long will this wicked community grumble against me? I have heard the complaints of these grumbling Israelites. So tell them, as I surely live, declares the Lord, I will do to you the very thing I heard you say. In this wilderness, your bodies will fall, every one of you 20 years old or more, who was counted in the census, who has grumbled against me. Not one of you will enter the land I swore with uplifted hand to make your home, except Caleb, Joshua. As for your children that you said would be taken as plunder, I will bring them in to enjoy the land you have rejected. But as for you, your bodies will fall in this wilderness. Your children will be shepherds here for 40 years, suffering in your unfaithfulness, until the last of your bodies lies in the wilderness. For 40 years, 1 year for each of the 40 days you explored the land, you will suffer for your sins and know what it is like to have me against. I, the Lord, have spoken, and I will surely do these things to this whole wicked community which has banded together against. They will meet their end in this wilderness. They will die. Ooh, Chile. Let's read 39 through 45, and we're going to finish this up. When Moses reported this to all the Israelites, they mourned bitterly. Early the next morning, they set out for the highest point in the hill country, saying, now we are ready to go up to the land the Lord promised. Surely we have sinned. Oh, they got some nerve, y'all. But Moses said, why are you disobeying the Lord's command? This will not succeed. Do not go up, because the Lord is not with you. You will be defeated by your enemies, for the Amalekites and the Canaanites will face you there. Because you have turned away from the Lord, he will not be with you, and you will fall by the sword. Nevertheless, in their presumption, they went up toward the highest point of the hill country, though neither Moses nor the ark of the Lord's covenant moved from the camp. Then the Amalekites and the Canaanites who lived in that hill country came down and attacked them and beat them down all the way to Hormah. It's like, do we even need to say more? Do we even need to say more? Okay, because you know the saying, putting your foot in your own mouth. That's just what the Israelites did. So let's just rewind and kind of summarize what we just read. The people, the leaders go to Canaan, explore the land. Some come back and report all of the terrible things that they've seen in the land and say, we're not going to do good in the land. They have too many huge giants and the people there are too powerful. We are too weak, so that's not going to be good for us. So then the Israelites fall into this trap and say, well, why didn't y'all just leave us in Egypt? Why would y'all take us out of Egypt? Just let us go back to Egypt. Let's just get a leader. Let's go back to Egypt where everything was good. We worked, we had food, we was good. We didn't have to worry about all this, because at this point, they don't believe that God is who he actually say is because they're faithless, they're unfaithful. And we see this where God says he punishes their unfaithfulness. God comes to Moses and he say, look, Moses, it's very obvious that they don't want to believe in me. When are they going to believe in me? It doesn't seem like this is something that they want to do. Therefore, I will destroy them. And this is what Moses does, and this is what we can do when we talk to God. Moses began to quote God's scripture back to him. So we see this in verse 17 where he says, now may the Lord's strength to be displayed just as you declared. The Lord is slow to anger, abounding in love, forgiving in sin, rebellion. However, he does not let the guilty go unpunished. He just continues to read these words, and these are things that he said back in Exodus and Daniel and all of these things. He quotes this to God, saying like, God, this is not who you are. You have to reveal who you are to the people, the us who's reading the Bible, because if you destroy the people before they even get to the promised land, then how will people even know that you were God in the first place, right? So when this happens, God said, okay, you know what? I'm not going to destroy all the people. I'm going to bless the people like Joshua and Caleb and their ancestors because they had faith and they believed. However, for those who didn't believe, we see here in verse 23, it says, no one who has treated me with contempt will ever see it. And then you go down to verses 28 to 36, and you see where God is like, 40 years, your ancestors, the ones who didn't believe in me, I'm going to let them see this land because, yes, this is what I promised them. But they will be enslaved. They will be shepherds. They will work for every day would be a year. So for the 40 days y'all went to explore this land and came back with this bad report, now those 40 days have turned into 40 years. So be careful. The people say, but we still gonna go up there anyway. Because now they're realizing that what, they may have made a mistake. So they go up to the land of Canaan all the way to the top of the countryside, and Moses said, hey, don't do that. And we see that in verses 39 to 45. Moses say, hey, don't do that. I'm telling you, God not with you because y'all already was showing y'all unfaithfulness. He's no longer with y'all. So don't go up there. Guess what they did? They went up there anyway and got beat down. Got beat down by the enemies because of their unfaithfulness. So if we don't get anything else from this lesson, stop looking back. Move forward, or you're going to miss out on what God has for you. Stop worrying about what you don't have, what you did have, what you want to have, what you should have. Worry about what God has already blessed you with, because that is the only way to see the entire promise and vision that God has given us from the very beginning. So this was a lot to read. Go back if you haven't read Numbers 10, chapters 10 through 14. It is a lot to digest, but I wanted to make sure that you guys understood what's going on, what's happening, and take the message as in, don't look back. When you look back, you're literally going to be like Lot's wife. She looked back and turned into a pillar of salt because she could not leave that certain lifestyle alone. Leave the lifestyle alone. Leave the relationship alone. Leave the job alone. Whatever is no longer serving your purpose and your plan that God has for you, leave it alone. And that's my message for today. I hope you guys enjoyed. Please do not forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Please talk to me. Please talk to me. Let me know how you enjoyed this lesson. I thoroughly enjoyed this lesson. This is probably my favorite one thus far. And if you have not subscribed, go ahead and subscribe. Like this channel. Turn your notifications on so that you can be notified when I upload my next Bible study video. I love you guys, and until next time, bye.